Hello, fellow Curious Creatives out there. This is your host, Mike Kepka, the Curious Creative, coming to you on all the best podcast platforms with yet another episode of the Curious Creative. Today, we have a very special show for you. Recently, I was invited on Matt Gustaferro's podcast, Positive Mischief. Matt is in charge of another DC-based video company called Hugo Creative, where he and his team create, well, you guessed it, because this is the podcast where you come to hear about it, video content that shows results for their clients. Last month, Matt invited me to his studio where we swapped strategic approaches and war stories from the video-centric careers we've both been driving for the past decade or so. And I think you'll find that this is actually a fairly rare chance to hear some of Mike Kepka's story, as Matt and I both shared the spotlight as each other's guests. Usually I stay in host mode in order to highlight the magic of our guests, but today you get a little more of me. I hope you enjoy.
Listening to The Curious Creative with your host and video expert, Mike Kepka.
Everybody, welcome back. Today, yesterday, I don't know what we're on. We have Mike Kepka. He's DP Director Extraordinaire from Kepka House Production Studio and Strategies here in the DC area. Of course, like we said, this is all DC-based creatives. Mike is one of those. He is joining us today, and we're doing something fun and different. Mike also has a podcast. What's it called, Mike?
The Curious Creative. I speak to creative-minded people actually looking to stretch their less creative brains and look at numbers and data and how that's related to what creative is doing for the clients.
See, I love that. So we're going to combine those two today. The Jester's going to do what the Jester does with Mike, and Mike is going to have some stuff back for me. So we're going to have a lot of fun here, paddling things back and forth. Pickleball style, which we're going to come back to soon. So,
right, let it rip. I have no plan. Usually I come in with a little something, but today
we're just going to let it rip. I love that.
It's pretty much your show, my friends.
Good. I love it. So, first question out of the gate for everybody is, how would you describe your job to a child?
I make pretty pictures that move.
See, I love that.
I communicate somebody's point of view, if not my own, with a camera. For 20 plus years, I did that with two-dimensional still images. And the last 10 or 15 years, that has been almost exclusively video. So, but it's basically telling stories with some sort of tool so that other people can understand what's going on.
That's so easy, so simple, so succinct.
Right, I don't even remember what I just said, but hey, it rolled off the first time, right?
That's right,
So,
it was perfect. Yeah, it was excellent. So, Kepka House, you've been doing production, post-production for 20 years with that entity?
Well, like I said, I worked at the San Francisco Chronicle from 1999 to 2015. I was a staff photojournalist.
Oh, nice.
In the Bay Area, and I did a column about eccentric people in San Francisco for the last 8 years I was there.
So how easy was that?
I mean, the stories were really fun to tell. The hardest part of any sort of storytelling is to find the actual stories.
Yeah.
Once you find those stories, you just kind of do your magic. But really, the thing is that those stories, you'd think that there literally are on every corner there, but the story only gets told that wants to be told. So you still have to approach these people, find out what their thing is, and then, hey, do you want to tell your story?
Yeah.
And it's really as much of their giving to the storyteller as it is the storyteller.
So you were doing Humans of New York before Humans of New York existed?
Right. If I had a nickel for every time somebody says, oh, this is just like Humans in New York,
You're
which
like, no,
I think...
I did it first.
I predated Humans in New York, I think, several years.
Yeah.
And then... that guy is prolific, several books, and, just got a lot of play and went viral at a time when viral was huge.
Yeah, exactly.
And, again, credit for that guy that really it is those stories that are interesting. Execution is what it is, but it's really, I think people love it or loved it so much. I haven't seen it in a while. It's just these little slice of life things that allow other humans to sort of relate and understand what's going on there. I think for me, that is like 101 or general mission of everything I do is to tell something about somebody that other people can relate to. And I think if we do that, goal is met. And I think in advertising right now, the big buzz, I don't think it's a buzz or new anyway, is being authentic. And what I'm saying is that's just like doing journalism and sort of telling somebody's actual story.
It should be. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So-
I mean, look, we're all humans, and I think to hear what somebody thinks and believes and why they think that, and to respect them for their position as a human being first and foremost, if you can do that, you're going to have an authentic story.
That's right.
You're going to let that come through.
Right. I think in the sort of corporate or commercial or Hollywood world, people are trying to script a lot of things, trying to figure out how are we going to make this interesting. And I think that especially when you get around a creative table of people who haven't actually talked to the person who's going to be on the other side of the camera, they're coming up with all these ideas that might not be executable, right? But really all you have to do is sort of leave enough room for those unknown variables. That's, again, what journalism is. You go in and you never have the answer for somebody. You might have a premise or a thesis, a point you're trying to get to, but really it's what those people want to say. And like they say, you can't make this shit up. I mean, that's like how it goes. That's life. You can't make it up. And if you try to make it up, you're gonna get the opposite of authentic.
The best reality TV is just life itself.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, who doesn't just love sitting and watching people? At least I do. That's
Right. People watching.
you can't go wrong, right?
That'd be a fun show in and of itself. People watching where you hear somebody on a bench is trying to guess what people's story are. That'd be kind of fun. Scott Van Pelt from ESPN, his whole thing is sports is the best reality TV. And I kind of believe him. Like, it's just unscripted. You just get after it and you see the highs and lows of drama. And I think capturing that in outside of sports, I think is what's really fun about those connections you're talking about, like trying to hear the highs and the lows, hear it while it's happening.
Right.
Not to have it be scripted. You know, you just want to hear what somebody is.
Right. It's funny you bring sports up. Like in my newspaper days, I did a whole lot of sports, and I'm not a sports guy. And they also rarely ever let me actually go photograph the sports. I was the
It's a tough one.
No, but I was the human interest guy. So I have spent more time running around baseball parks where the people actually sit and watch the game and actually covering the events from the point of view of the audience.
That's a cool.
So that translates again into everything else I do. So it's like I feel like that story is the one that they think it's the guy throwing the ball, but the story really is
the kid
behind
12B
you.
who's
right. And I never, a lot of like newspaper world or TV world, there's editors going, well, is anybody interested in that? But I think that, again, as long as you are telling something as it is and other people can relate to it, even if it's like at a baseball game, if it's a kid and a dad in a hat, who can't relate to that some way or another?
100%.
Right?
Yeah.
So
I think so. On that note of telling stories and stuff and eccentric, what was the most interesting, craziest eccentric story that comes to mind right away from your San Francisco?
Oh man, this is the question that like everybody always asks, and like especially with my characters, I mean, it's more like pulling one doesn't really do it justice. It is like a whole montage of fuzzy, warm feelings that I have from all these characters, right? There's certainly was the flower lady, the trumpet kid. There, for some reason, I'm thinking of Movember. There was like a party where people were wearing their mustaches for money. I mean, outside of that world, like I said, I've done 4 World Series. I did a Super Bowl for the guy who doesn't like football.
Right.
Right. I have met and photographed 3 presidents, 2 vice presidents. I mean, everything under the sun. Paris Hilton, she was, like you get to do these hobnobbing society things. And again, bringing it back to my overall mission was to make images that other people can A, relate to, and B, maybe not see every day as well. Right? So if you see Paris Hilton, I certainly want to see her when she's, touching up her makeup behind the staircase, right, when she walks into the big ball of the evening or something like that, or if it's the baseball, I want to see, again, the mascot putting his costume on or something
Yeah.
something that your average people don't get to see, like, because isn't that the point of having a camera, is to show somebody again
Was to capture those moments.
what they're not seeing, right?
Yep.
I think, again, video being my main language now, using those skills and translating that into storytelling of the day, again, sort of not being afraid to step away from the script, right? I think that, I had early on, I had some professors tell me, well, that video camera is more like letting stuff roll through the frame as opposed to picking your moment. But I kind of disagree. I think you're still composing an image with a person or a subject or something going in, but you're still anticipating what's happening. You're anticipating how that person going through or saying or smiling, the way they look, even the way you choose your lens, all of that says something about the story you're trying to say.
Well, there's something that you get when you see somebody in real life, and we'll use that difference between capturing a still moment and capturing motion moment. We'll call that the in real life part of it. You see different facets of them. The smile or the downtrodden face, whatever it is that you capture that one single moment. You're missing like what happens after that, what happens before that, because that's what makes a person,
right?
Is all of those phases of a smile, all those phases of a frown.
Well, I mean, it's interesting you mentioned that you can get more of that. The whole reason I think I went with video after my still photography world was that I feel like storytelling is adding layers of information onto itself, and video has this way of really adding complexity to that whole equation, right?
Yeah.
You do get those before and after moments. You get people's moving. You get their voice. I mean, a voice is. What do you have if you have amazing footage and really bad sound?
It's funny, we talked about that in the first episode.
And the answer is, what do you have?
Awful. Nothing.
You have awful.
Garbage.
Right. What do you have if you have amazing audio and video? What do you got?
You have a story.
No, you have a documentary. That's how that goes,
That's
right?
how it goes,
So, like, we can overlook a lot of flaws in the visual, but the sound, we are so in tune with everything. I mean, we're inundated with the most amazing sounds. We're streaming it in our phone, our TV, all of it, and it's top notch.
Yeah.
Just ask our sound engineer over here, right?
I get it.
And without her, that we wouldn't, we'd just be a couple of hacks sitting here on a couch.
Well, it's funny. She was the first guest, one of the first guests in this space, and we talked about that exact same thing. So Alex and Donna were in here, and we talked about how you can have beautiful pictures, but if your sound sucks, like, you're screwed.
Right.
Vice versa. You have a documentary.
I mean, capturing that sound and getting that somebody on the other end of that microphone to feel authentic is really its own. Like, I learned a lot of my audio techniques from Davia Nelson of the Kitchen Sisters. She and her partner in crime did a show about celebrity kitchens. And they would have, and the stories were never really about kitchens or the celebrity in the kitchen. It was always like getting to that point where you figure out what the story really is. But she ran some workshops in San Francisco, and they sent the newspaper guys over there to do that. And it was one of the most amazing workshops I've ever had. She sat down for 4 hours and showed us all the tricks in her bag. And she said, if you get to an interview and you're sitting, this is, mind you, without a camera, because she works in radio. So if you sit next to somebody and you're interviewing them, if by the end of that interview you are not gussied up to them with your arm around their shoulder and that microphone right here, and they have completely forgot and they are into their story, that's where you want to be. That's that magic point of it all leads back to the authenticity, the believability of a story for the audience. And
it's that proverbial arm around moment.
Yeah. And again, you just can't make that up. I mean, and San Francisco as a town is just full of it. So, but here we are in DC.
Right. Very different town.
Right. They're still there. They're just not like on every corner, right? I think here people are also quite wrapped up in what they do for a living. Do you ever get that you go to a party? What do you do for a living?
What do you do?
You got to find out what's that connection and how's that going to work for me, which is, it's valuable, but it certainly gets old after a while.
It's inhuman.
Right. Sometimes I go to a party and I play this game with myself. How long can I get into a conversation without letting them know what I do? Because I'm so
different.
It's so normal for me to ask everybody questions as the journalist in the room. Like, it's just what I do. And I've gotten good at people forgetting that I'm asking the question. And so then when will they ask what I do?
Do you ever find out that, especially in this town, that they look at you cross-eyed when you're like, oh yeah, I'm a director. I make movies. I make videos. They're like, wait, you're not a You're not a politician. You don't work on Capitol Hill.
Nah,
you're not a consultant. You're not a lawyer.
I look at it as like I think since we're talking about creativity, I think that anytime you can tell somebody that you do something that isn't like in a cubicle or behind a desk most of the time, they get kind of interested.
They do, but there's also this really weird look on their face, like, wait, you're not. Oh, and then it starts to kind of change, and they want to hear more about it. But it is fun to be the sole creative person in a sea full of politicians and consultants and Capitol Hill hacks and everything.
I mean, I just look at every conversation I have as an opportunity to have a conversation about what's the next thing we're going to do to make some money, guys. I mean, I think, the big thing with leaving the newspaper in 2015 is I suddenly was out without this identity anymore, and I didn't even have a camera. I had to figure out what am I going to do and how am I going to do this, right? And how am I going to transition into not just the guy who's good at the craft, but turn that into a business.
Yeah.
So that really is like, now we are year 9 and we're doing pretty well, but I keep evolving and turning that into why are we making video for clients? And that's sort of what I've been working on for the last year, really. Doing case studies and understanding what people's goals are, not just with video, but what their goals are for their company.
100%.
And then looking at that and sort of setting a goal or a series of goals to actually create content and meet their goals, and people talk about ROI and KPI, all of that is sort of the magic to figure out what that is. But all we're saying is that we want to create a specific kind of video, a specific kind of story, a specific kind of content so that that client can use that to meet their goals.
Well, that's it, and I think to get to that place, you have to be able to have that kind of conversation with them where they feel safe enough to share those things with you.
Right.
And that's part of what it is that we do. We're creatives and we're, artsy, and we're helping them get to these, solutions, but there's also a therapy part of it, I think, that we've kind of settled on of we're also helping them to relax into this conversation.
Right.
Because more often than not, they're coming to us with a problem, and they're frustrated, they're upset, they're losing sleep, their boss is breathing down their neck, and it's like, okay, well, cool, we got this, and you can see like the shoulders go, okay,
right. I mean, it's interesting you say that, is because like a lot of times I'll go in, I'll say, well, what's your problem? Not what's your company's problem. Yeah. What's your problem? What is your boss, supervisor, manager need to see from you?
What's keeping you up
to
at
give
night?
you that raise, right? What is going to make you secure your spot in this company? Yeah. And a lot of those are the goals we're talking about. And they might be, parallel to what the corporate goal is, but a little bit different. And then I think also, again, this pivot that we've done this year is I've been working with these consultants, and I've really learned, they've been helping me how to translate what's good about creative that I think a lot of right-brained people have trouble putting onto paper. So we're translating now stories that we all love and engage. Why are we engaging, though? That's the engagement is what's going down on the paper. And we're actually putting those down in numbers and spreadsheets and then trackable data by way of the way we're going to distribute the video content. And so it's that data, no matter how sexy that video is, my friend, it's that data that they then can take to their people and say, oh, well, duh, this paid for itself. Or, look, we got X 5 times return on this. Not only did it pay for itself, but had we not done this, we would have not made $200,000. Sure. Right? And $200,000 may very well be that person's, more than that person's salary. So then everybody starts to be happy as a clam. And then you take that workflow and perpetuate your own security working with that particular client. And so... Okay. Right?
So let's talk about that then from your podcast. What you're trying to do. What does that look like, those conversations you're having?
Right. Well, let's I'm going to use a community solar company that I've been working with lately, right? The company came to me, you know how this happens. It's a friend of a friend, somebody you've worked with before. They left one job, they're at the new job, and say, Mike does good stuff, let's hire him again. But,
happens all the time.
But again, they come to you with a slightly different problem. So without telling you exactly who the company is, they're local, they're huge, they're one of the biggest community solar companies really in the United States. They are doing billions of dollars of of operation, and what they need to do is secure places to put their community solar projects. So that gives us somebody who has land. Okay, so they're partnering with people called landowners. Those are farmers. Those are people who want to retire. Those are people who can't plant enough corn to make stuff happen, but they can lease their land to the community solar company. So the thing is that all the landowners out there don't know that they have this opportunity. So what do? They've said, well, what we need to do is talk to the landowners that have partnered with us, and we need to get them to give us their story, give us a testimonial. Why do they like the company? What's it doing for them? And so immediately I'm like, great. This is using my skills as an authentic storyteller. We sit down with people. This is stuff I've done for decades. We go to their place. We shoot all the things that make them who they are. We do an authentic interview and cut that into something that meets the goals, but actually is highly watchable for somebody who isn't even interested in solar. You're just interested in these people as humans who live in the middle of the country, and they have found this solution to their problem that has changed everything.
Well, there you go.
And so to turn that into a video that translates, this is where we haven't gotten there yet. I'm telling you all the process to get up there. So then the company takes this, they use this tool that we have now created for them to disseminate into all of their maybes. All the people that have inquired what's going on. They don't really know that there's a lot of companies out there that do this. And why are we going to work with this company?
Right.
Because we have this testimony that says they have gotten it right. Not only did they get it right, it went well. They are now creating wealth for future generations.
Sure.
Here's what the company wants to know. When they close one landowner, millions. That's where I get to work with them again, because we have now created something that literally you can draw a direct line to return. Huge amounts of dollars for return, because they took a gamble on me and all my skills. And, production costs aren't cheap, but they weren't millions.
Yeah.
But it's easy to justify your existence when you were saying, hey, I did this, it made that, and we're not even in the same ballpark, because the numbers it's through the roof.
Well, that's amazing.
It's really exciting. Yeah. So that's, I've done some solar stuff over the years, but this one is really a catalyst for like the next turn. And I'm hoping to translate that into all sorts of case studies, landing pages. I'll talk to you about design stuff. We're using all the same principles of engagement on the landing pages to get people to see what we do, understand that it created a return.
That's a huge
but how
thing.
do you keep people engaged in that site so that they know that they want to work with you next time too?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, how do you translate? What's the translation for your client base in that sort of realm? How are you solving problems for them?
It's a variety of things, but I think first of all, it's emotional. Like there is a return. They want to see that their dollars are going to this, and that this was successful as part of a bigger, scope of work. And that because it was successful, they had X number of people show up, or they had, so many clicks or whatever it is, and that they're able to take that and connect it back to the creative.
For the audience, I like to really break this down into like super stupid simple. Like, so can you give me a hypothetical or a past client that you've worked with where they came and they said, we need this from you, Matt. You're the
Sure.
dude.
So yeah, we did. My favorite one is colon cancer awareness. There was nothing really about that, and it was Colon Cancer Awareness Month, and we want to get people talking about their butts, which is not an easy thing. If you're Kim Kardashian, it's one thing, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about something far more invasive that people don't want to talk about, and life and death. So it's, okay, how can we create a narrative that is inviting and welcoming that also encourages people to go have this thing checked? And that first year was wildly successful. It was Love Your Butt was the name of the campaign, and it just went crazy.
And so what tools are you using? It sounds like humor is involved.
Humor was involved in this one in particular to try to lessen the blow of it, to try to lessen the awkwardness of it. It's like, Grandma, love your butt, this kind of thing. It's like, well, what are you talking about, honey? And this, you're sort of trying to encourage them in a fun way to talk about something that's a difficult conversation. For all the reasons we talked about just a second ago. And so when you're able to do that and then get them to let their guard down, start to be like, okay, you know what? I can go do this, or I can at least get some information about this. That's the first step in winning them over, is allowing them to see there's some safety there and to get some information.
Where did Hugo come into the? Have you worked with this client a long time?
That was our first project with them, was to develop the whole campaign.
Okay.
So we developed the entire campaign from soup to nuts.
How did you come across that organization? Did they find you? Or?
It was a friend of a friend.
Okay.
Kind of
That's
thing.
the best connections. It's
It was
people you know.
Friend of a friend, and we came in knowing very little about colon cancer, but what we did know is we knew humans, and I think what we've come across is that no matter whether you're selling a promo for a TV show, whether you're selling people to go get checked, whether you're want people to click on a website or something, whatever it is, or a nonprofit association, you're still dealing with human beings. And the one thing that doesn't change is humans don't change. We're all the same. We're always going to be the same. And so the topic might be different, but I'm still trying to get humans to pay attention to me. And that's the same regardless.
Are you working with their marketing director, or who's heading the team?
So it was at that point. So this was a few years ago. At that point, it was straight to the CEO. He was involved from the very beginning, and going straight to that level of decision maker changed everything.
Right.
And also they were pretty much across the street from us, so he could come over and hang out, and just change the whole name of the game.
When we sit down and do a pitch, because we spend a lot of time on these pitches, right?
Yep.
Colors, graphics, numbers. One of the first questions we say, okay, we want to present this, but we want to present this to
decision makers.
The decision maker,
Yes.
not like 12 of them. And if that decision maker doesn't show up, I think we're going to have to reschedule, because we really need to show that our time is valuable, their time is valuable, and that's it.
Yeah.
We need somebody who can't be second guessed, and they understand the value of all of those variables there.
100%.
So,
And then from that first year, it exploded. The first year was fairly regional, some Pittsburgh, DC, obviously, and I forget there were a couple other cities. The next year, it went bi-coastal. We were in Times Square, we were in Hollywood Boulevard.
Did you? What kind of a spot or an ad did you do? Or what was
it? Was everything from metro ads, bus ads, subway ads, print, newspaper ads, PSA. So we did, the first year was a shoot for a PSA. The second year was also a shoot. The third year was an animation. So each year what we found is that the first 2 years were really successful, but what we found is that it was translating into interest and conversation and people getting all of that information, but it wasn't translating into like actual appointments to get scanned, to get the colonoscopies or whatever it was. And so there was a shift from years 1 and 2 into year 3 of like, this could literally save your life. Colon cancer is the second leading cause of killers among men and women.
So is that where you
So it was like,
you dialed into like a more sincere message, or
we dialed into a more sincere message, but then because it was also a little bit serious, the PSA was more humorous, more lighthearted, animated. And it was this idea of like, it's so easy, why wouldn't you get checked? And so then it was like, oh, well, why wouldn't you wear your parachute when you jumped out of a plane? It's so easy. Why wouldn't you wear your life jacket when you're on a boat? It's so easy. And it was these very comical things. You're like, why wouldn't you look both ways when you cross the street? So your little animated character gets hit by the bus. Says, he's obviously not dead, not morbid. It's that Dumb Ways to Die video from Australia or New Zealand, where they did, why wouldn't you, be aware when you're crossing the railroad tracks or whatever.
Who was heading up the distribution, or is that your game too? Or?
No, so we worked with, who was it? Marissa Potts was handling PR in that, and she's local. She's fantastic, but I forget who was doing distribution, but she handled all of that kind of stuff.
Did you bring her into the?
So she was already working with the nonprofit on that one. So we kind of
did she have this sort of vision to, hey, let's bring a creative in to
I
create this
don't
campaign?
remember whose that was, but I think the CEO was very much, leading that charge. And so then they ended up merging with another one, and they have now a giant, nonprofit. But that was one, I think, where you were able to see the shift, the seismic shift, if you will, in attendance and interest, because we created a campaign that people were able to buy into, and it became this thing of, it was the logo was an upside down heart, looks like a butt. And then we put the love. So people were actually doing this, on social media, and the heart, the shirts had that and everything. So it became more than just a saying, but it became something like a sign that they were able to share with their friends and family, and people are like, "Oh yeah, I love your butt. I get it too." That kind of thing.
Seems like a lot of people are doing the right thing. I think that
Yeah.
part of my pivot to strategy here is that I can't tell you how many times I've worked with clients. I've worked really, really hard on something that looks really great. I feel like this is the winner. And then you turn around and look at it 3-6 months later, and it's like, what'd you do with that? Well, we stuck it on our website.
Right.
And we didn't do anything with it. And it didn't seem like anybody looked at it. Well, you know why? Because we didn't get it to the right places.
Yeah.
We didn't promote it. We didn't put any spend behind it. Nobody thought about distribution. So now we're actually helping these people implement a plan like that.
And and that's the great place to be. Sometimes you have no choice in there. We did a really cool promo for a Discovery show, and it went through all the levels. We even delivered the thing, and it's sitting on a shelf.
Yeah.
Because if for some reason somewhere up it didn't quite meet somebody's standard at some point, and there was a miscommunication, but not enough of a miscommunication to stop it mid thing. So like you do this whole thing, it has this cool story, and it hits all the right notes, and then for some reason it doesn't match some strategy that wasn't dictated down the line, and you're like, I don't know what to do with this. And so there are those moments where you can't help a process that you're not part of. So I think when certain large entities that already have that squared away, they're not interested in you bringing that to the table. And that can be hard to have those conversations. If your decision maker is, Zaslav, CEO, well, I'm not going to have an audience with him. And I'm being a little, hyperbolic, obviously, but there's an interesting thing, I think, when you have the ability, like you said, to meet with those CEOs, with the CMOs, the VPs of creative and stuff like that.
Right.
You're in a better spot to help figure out what that roadmap looks like.
Right. Interesting, like I actually think like when you're working with, smaller to medium-sized companies and the CEO is willing to talk to you about what you want to do, I think that also says a lot about the company.
Agreed.
And how they are receptive to what people are really looking and thinking about, right? I think that I've worked with some companies, and there's such a layer of bureaucracy who I don't even know who's in charge, right? And inevitably, the wiggle room for creative and making something out of the box is pretty slim.
Sounds like the government.
But working with these smaller companies, like this solar company, and saying, they're trusting me to come through on something. We know what it wants it to do.
Yep.
And they're taking a leap because they're trusting what I'm doing. And I met with the leader of the company. I met with the marketing director, and the two of us sat together and said, this is what we want to do. Yeah. And that was amazing.
Yeah.
Right?
After this, I'm getting on the phone with the owner of a company that's a new client we just started. Like the owner, not, the creative director, not the lead designer, like the owner. Right. Because I get to hear straight from him what he wants to do about this script that we're writing. That doesn't get any better than that.
All right. Question for you. I'm taking over the reins for a sec. Favorite part of the process? Favorite part of the creative process or the client
that's a good
process?
question.
Whatever that is, take it. But where do you fit in best with how it's going?
I think I fit in best at the very beginning of hearing what they're trying to accomplish. Having that sit down, that one-on-one of like, let's put all the cards on the table. What you said earlier. What is your problem? What's your problem? What's the company's problem? What are you trying to solve? Let's talk about that. Because I find that I think I'm pretty good at that, about listening to them, about breaking that down, trying to assess feelings and emotions and all of that kind of stuff. And so I think I fit in really well there.
Right. It's a good place to be.
It's a good place to be.
I think that's where creatives, like, again, the mission statement of the Curious Creative is to get right brain thinking people, left brained thought process. So like the ability to have a conversation with somebody who sees things in lines and squares is a really big thing. Yeah. And so learning those skills, I think, is really important.
It's funny when you do those like right brain, left brain tests. I come down in the middle every single time. I'm like 50-50. So I can sit in that room and I can have that creative conversation, but I can also have that sort of planning conversation, the project manager conversation, the producer conversation, and be able to help them through all of that in a very impactful way that I then, once it gets into production, then I can have conversations that are really intelligent with the producers on it.
Right.
in a way that doesn't come across as like, oh, I'm just a cool creative and I don't understand process and timing. Just get it done.
Well, I
Like,
mean, I think that sounds like a bunch of BS. If somebody says they can't,
I agree with
then
that
if you're running a
completely.
business, my friend, you need to learn how to wear all the hats.
100%.
I
yeah.
think where I really try hard is to, when a minute ago I said lines, things left to right, up and down. This is the very left brain stuff. My brain may very well be like this, right? I mean, it's like Rorschach, or there's dots and spots. And the thing where I've been learning to rein this in is to figure out how to translate that into a language that somebody who doesn't inherently think that way. I don't know if it's an ability or a disability, right? But like the ability to translate that into something that other people can understand. And then something that I did not learn at the newspaper, that I absolutely learned outside of the newspaper, is that a team is a valuable part of an operation.
Question.
So in the newspaper, everything is, in the freelance world, we call this the one-man band. It's the guy that shows up with the thing and the sound and the thing, and he's doing this.
Yes. And asking questions at the
in
same
the
time.
outside world, it's the opposite. We compartmentalize, especially on set, right? We compartmentalize the person in the best budget, the person who runs the camera, the person who helps the guy run the camera, the person who helps the guy who's running the camera, the person who's running the prompter, the person who's running the sound, the person who gets coffee for the sound person, and the director, the exec, all of these things, so that at the end of the day, we've got something that's really powerful. And what do? The audience just watches it. They don't care who helped.
Nope.
And that's really, so my point of that conversation is that I work with people who have skill sets on both sides of those brain, right? I know where I'm pretty good, and I think I'm pretty good as the spokesperson for our mission.
Yes.
Talking creative, talking some of this data now, but I've hired the data people to take that home, because they're the super nerds. If you look at my website, I literally call them the super nerds.
Yeah.
To make sure that they're getting those numbers that the client needs to see.
100%.
And then I've got project managers who make sure that we all stay on track, because wouldn't we like to spend 100 hours doing this? But we really only have 30 hours to do this. So
and that's
the
what
project
they do.
manager's problem, right? And then we have, the editors and other people that think in different ways.
Yeah.
So a good organization is really, in my opinion, working with people who are better than you is goal number one.
Agreed.
I have worked with people who think that they should hire people that will listen to your direction. And I'd rather almost have it be the other way around. I'd rather have these people say, well, what if we did this?
Yes.
Who have the guts to stand up to the person who's paying them and say, I think it's going to be better if we do this.
Bring some
Let's gut
ideas
check.
to the table.
And I think that really is the big difference between amazing content that we watch and something that's just trying to check a box.
Look, I can teach a monkey how to use After Effects and Photoshop. So finding somebody who can use it is not that much of a challenge.
Right.
Finding somebody who can use it well and bring something to the table with it, that's a different story.
Isn't it just a prompt now anyway?
Proactive, right?
So we just tell After Effects, make the monkey stand on the table, and could you have him throw poop at the banana? Can we do that?
Sure.
I don't know if we can do that
Yeah,
yet.
not yet.
But
It won't be long.
not long.
Yeah.
Right.
But it is one of those things where, like, bring something to the table based on your expertise. If you're an expert motion designer, then I would like you to be able to conceptually talk about those things as well. We're trying to accomplish this. Yeah, I can make that happen. Cool, move on. But no, but this might be a better way to do this within what I know and I'm an expert at.
Right.
That's a different story.
Right. It's funny you brought up the animation and motion graphics. We're actually right now working with my animation lead. He and his wife are this dynamic duo in the UK.
Okay.
So this is, as an NDA, I don't know how much I can say, but we're working on a series on sort of the social scene on the pickleball court. We've been back and forth to New York a bunch of times the last couple of months, and we're now in the process of developing actual show that's going to be seen in front of a bunch of people. Very exciting. Pickleball's the
That's
biggest sport in
fun,
the world.
yeah.
I love it. But anyway, we decided that we needed an intro, just like any good TV show that says, in 15 seconds, this is what you're going to be watching.
Yep.
And if you don't have that, I guess people were lost. It makes sense, right? So I was kind of throwing ideas out. My producer partner and I were going, okay, I think it needs to do this. It needs to have the concept that we've got this and all these people and all these courts and da-da-da. I explained that to the animation guy, and somehow he heard something similar but came up with something brilliant
Oh,
and
yeah.
different, right? He took chords and multiplied them and spun them around, and now we have like the next layer. And now
Yeah.
this afternoon we're going to sit down and we're going to say, okay, how do we make that better? Because
Sure.
you have to communicate this thing really, really fast. It's got to be dynamic and moving, but still say something. It can't just look sexy. The whole point of all of it is it has to do something.
Has to communicate a message.
That's where we are. But again, I wouldn't build it. I mean, this guy did something in a couple hours that like I couldn't do that.
And there you have it.
Right.
That's a team.
That's it. That's the team.
That's so great.
Right. It's awesome.
Mike, this was a ton of fun.
Shit, it was
I
great.
appreciate it. Yeah, this is awesome. We'll do this again
Yeah.
sometime down the line.
I love it.
Yeah.
Remind me the name of your podcast.
Positive Mischief.
And everybody tune into Positive Mischief, and you're going to turn into The Curious Creative.
There you go.
You can see me on Apple, Spotify, LinkedIn, and YouTube where it's
right.
born.
Wherever you find your favorite podcasts, you can find us there. You can find us on our websites too, probably.
This is good. We should do this again.
I know.
I want to,
Follow
see where
up.
we are in 6 months. Yeah.
Right?
Good stuff.
Yeah. With a buddy of mine we did earlier, he and I hadn't seen, that question came up about the movie, hadn't seen The Godfathers. And we're both Italian, and we're like, this is embarrassing on every level. So we're going to watch them together, and then we're going to come back and talk about it. So we got a couple of those things to do. Casablanca and Citizen Kane. There we go. All right, folks, that's all we have. Talk to you later.
Well, there you have it, fellow creatives. Life lessons from myself and my colleague, Matt Gustaferro at Hugo Creative. See you next time on The Curious Creative.